the club project bird. I painted it with alkyd oils. I did try a different brand of alkyd oil, and it was Gamblin Fast Matte, and it's turned out very shiny. So not using that anymore, but actually finish a decoy. So. And I have quite a few decoys on the shelf to paint. So here's a Drake Redhead. This again is white cedar with alkyd oil paint, kind of an alert pose. And then I have one more. Did this little widgeon, again, white cedar, alkyd oils, the feeding position. This is the first puddle duck I've ever painted, so it was something new. A little bit more complicated than I'm used to. A lot of different feather groups. One thing that I noticed that I didn't realize is I've been saving the best samples I could find of decoys in the fall when I'm hunting. I'll throw them in the freezer and keep them as for study guides. And the best ducks that I get, especially the puddle ducks, I have a gadwall and this widgeon in the freezer, and the plumage isn't anywhere near full plumage. Even the best one that I can get in the fall, it's not even close. I mean, I pulled out my widgeon and I thought it was so great, and you can hardly see the green, you can hardly see the white. This coloration in the front is a lot different than all the reference materials you look at or pictures that you'd see. Just a lot less developed plumage. So this one is kind of a cross between the pictures in the book and what my bird from the freezer looked like.
Couple shorebirds. I got the killdeer that was the project here, and that's I think I used white cedar. We got the eyes and the head painted with acrylics. And this is my marbled godwit. I got first place in perm with him, and that's white cedar also. I think he has I think I used basswood on the bill. He's painted with acrylics and then a little oil stain over the top to kind of blend everything together and make him look a little more antique.
This is a cork decoy that I made. We had one extra block of cork when we did the kids' decoys this year, and I knew this was one of the competition birds. And last January, I think it was, I fell down some stairs rushing into a client's house and did a bunch of damage to my elbow. So I wasn't able to do a lot of carving of wood, but I was able to at least put together a cork decoy. Got either second or third place up there, I think. I don't remember. But that was one that I was able to throw together with it being cork. I did a marbled godwit for that show as well, and it's kind of interesting. Yeah, we did the ruddy turnstone a couple years ago, and Don was showing us how to do how to lay out the bills for that. Much bigger than the little ruddy turnstone that we did a couple years ago. The wood, I thought it was a piece of cedar when I started cutting into it. It ended up, it was Douglas fir from a weight-bearing post that we weren't using anymore in the house, and we had changed out the framing and decided to use that block of wood, not realizing that it was Douglas fir. If any of you guys have ever not carved Douglas fir before and want the horrible experience of it, I've got a lot of it. I have. It's a very tough wood to carve, and it leaves, which is probably why it's a strong wood. It has very raised grains, which is great for building, but it's not so great for carving. You had to do a lot of carving down on those heavy grains in there to get smooth. It was interesting, the coloration on these birds. I sat and looked at them for a long time, and all the photos show that they're different colors. I have a feeling that it's like a lot of our ducks where they have spring plumage and fall plumage. And I decided to do this one a little lighter colors, being as Kurt beat me, I've come to the conclusion that gentlemen, at least the gentlemen up there in Perham, do not prefer blondes. I think I would have done better had I used a little darker coloration on it, but that was an interesting bird to try. It was very reminiscent, remembering the different techniques that Don taught us on with bills. This is yours, young man. I think I'll lift up here.
This is my killdeer. I feel like I'm now an official member here since this is my first carving I've ever done. Red cedar, and this is the one that Don gave us the head. Found this piece of driftwood when I was up in Grand Marais last month, so I figured it might look good. It's just oil paint. That's that.
None of us wish our birds were like that.
Hey, Pat, here's your first bird.
And a lash. It's universal.
This is a cormorant. It's got too short a tail because one day I was playing with a piece of wood and I thought, I'll make it into a cormorant head. And so I did, and I liked the head, and I looked around and I had this. I think this was going to be some sort of a sea duck body. It does have too short a tail, and I figured, well, I'm going to take this up and I hunt with it and give Jim Cole kind of laugh. It's never hunted, so I entered it at Perham, and it didn't do well.
Denny, what's on the bottom of that one? Somebody was asking me that when they started out there.
Oh, this is, I think it's a door latch.
Yeah.
I've acquired a lot of old lead and steel pieces, and this was going to be kind of an antique, so I put that on there. This one I carved. This was my black duck for the contest. The contest, it was $500 for the first place black duck and $250 for each of the next 5 places. And I thought, well, gee, I gotta try that. And the only reason that I still have this decoy is because the weather, you remember that that was one of our last blizzards, and it abated too early and the good carvers all got there. Honestly, I used to be able to win at Pearl, but like Kurt said, the carving has gotten so much better up there. And so I didn't get a sniff, but this is as good as I can do.
You didn't have time to talk to the judges.
Pardon?
You didn't have time to talk to the judges.
No,
Yeah, his bill pulled out, but
That was for Bruce.
I think if Bruce had been there, I'd probably won.
Yeah. Here's part of my bluebill rig, hand drake, and then another drake. Carved out of Tupelo, hollowed out, painted with acrylics and walnut keels. So heads are separate. That's it.
see on the other drake,
Yeah,
so the feathers that go up on the bill,
yeah.
did you insert them or how'd you do that?
So some of them are carved and some of them are epoxy sculpt. So I used it and then formed them and then carved them in with a grinder.
Just wait a little bit so they can, if the guys didn't look at it.
Then some, on the back side, I just painted those on.
The feathers on the hand, did you paint each one, or is that all the rig making there with the little comb?
It's combed, yep, so all the,
And you painted on top of that then, or what?
yep, so like even the drakes, this is all combed. So, what I did is, I used like 3 different size combs. So I've been trying to do each feather in my combing, so it takes me a long time to comb, but, so I comb with texture paste, gesso, and a little bit of Rom or paint just to tint it so it's not white. And I'll have a practice board laying there and I'll paint some on and comb through it. If it stays up, that's a good consistency. If it wants to meld away, you got it too loose, so you got too much paint, you need more texture paste. So I'll go and comb all this, and then the next day, after it's good and dry, I come back with some sandpaper and just lightly sand it, kind of evens it out, and it kind of gives you a nice flat spot, so when you paint over it, it has a nice, it, you know, picks up on all the combing. So then I'll go, like for example, these guys, this is basically, I painted it as white underneath, did some shadowing with different shades of white and gray, and then I take a dark, like off black, like a warm black, and take a dry brush, like a filbert, like a dry brush, and no water, and load that brush up, and then I take a roll of paper towels. You know, paper towels aren't smooth, they have like a texture to them, very similar to your combing. So I'll scrub on a paper towel until there's hardly any paint left. So you hardly see any paint coming in there. So I just kind of build that up slowly. So then I'll come in here and just lay that brush down, and what it's doing, it's dry paint. It's not watered down at all, so it's fairly dry, and it just sticks to the top of your vermiculation, keeping the white or that lighter color underneath. And it may take a few passes, especially when you get this dark. It might take 2, 3, 4 times. That's a filbert. It's one of those kind of flat brushes and kind of rounded at the end. You can get them in different sizes, but I use I don't know, probably one that's about a 1/2 inch wide to 5/8 wide. So fairly decent sized brush.
What's the paint you use? Traditions?
Traditions or Joe Sonia. Yeah. And then after that, you can also take You could also start, if you wanted to, start with a light, like a medium gray, go over it, and do that, and then hit the edges with dark. So you can be creative and spend as much time as you want on this stuff, but then hit the edges. Then you got 2 different tones of vermiculation, or 3, however many colors you want to introduce to it. But then after I do that, then I go in and paint in some feather strip splits and do some highlighting here and there with the lighter color. Well, I brushed in some light color, dark colors, so just to feather it out a little bit, to try to break it up and soften it. So, and the hen, kind of the same principle across the top and the back. So on these hens, it's just kind of the edges. You see the vermiculation, but I combed all the way through the whole backs, but when I dry brushed, I only hit the tips of the feathers. And I kind of did the same thing, went through and feathered it out, painted on a light color, dark colors. Same thing on the side pockets here a little bit.
Tom?
Yep.
You go take a painting class somewhere, or you think of all this on your own?
Well, I've learned through the years, by going to competitions, I learned, then you kind of start doing,
Pick up
experiment on yourself. You know, one year we had Pat Gotten here, that was very helpful and learning some things, but yeah, otherwise it's just practice and spending time with a brush.
Being artistic.
So, yeah.
Do you seal your championship birds and all over the top of that?
I do. I've been spraying a dull coat, which is a lacquer. I'm trying to find a replacement. One thing if you use it, you don't want to, like an old can. I made a mistake on these drakes here. I sprayed them with old can. The blacks turned gray. Thankfully, it didn't affect the heads for some reason, because I had hours on painting those heads. So black for me, I had to go back through and repaint the black, and then went and got a new can. But talking with someone out at the show, they had mentioned Winsor Newton has a spray, lacquer spray, and you get a satin or in a matte. They told me a satin. But I also picked up the matte. I ordered matte. Dick Blick sells it online. I don't know if they carry it in their stores.
Michael's carries it.
Michael's carries it.
Matte is
Okay.
actually very nice.
Matte is okay.
Use that on all the kids.
Yeah. One thing the person that told me about it said that make sure your paint is cured out. So especially oil paint, you know, that can take a while, and it's something you probably don't want to spray in the summer or when it's humid. So you want to spray when it's dry, otherwise you're going to get a sheen. So be careful with it. I haven't used it. The best thing to try it on or experiment it on is shake it up good, get a cereal box, they're bright and colorful, spray it on there, you'll see what you're going to get. So before you spray it on your decoy to learn what you're going to get, spray it on something else.
It's very stinky paint too, so
Yeah.
give yourself a little extra time with it outdoors.
Yeah, Testers is too, it's toxic, but
A lot of fish decoy, people they paint with acrylics,
yeah,
and then they would use a poly over the top.
yeah,
And if your paint isn't really dry,
yeah,
it'll crinkle it up,
yeah,
and it just wrecks it.
Yeah, right.
And I called the company, and they said 2 or 3 weeks to let it
For
dry,
acrylics.
at least before it gets fully cured.
Yeah.
What it does, if you put it on too thick, it reactivates the paint, and
okay,
it
good to know. So I would guess the summer it's taking longer.
It'll
If
fall,
you got
yeah.
any humidity, it's probably gonna take longer, so just use it with caution, so.
What was it, Tom, what was the second one you said? What was the brand?
Windsor Newton,
Windsor Newton. I've heard of that.
I haven't tried it, but I picked some up.
It's a good one to get at Michael's with a 40% coupon because
Yeah.
it's expensive. It's about
Yeah.
$15.
Dick Blick online sells it for $7.99 a can.
Really?
Yeah.
I think we're looking into.
Yeah. But I just ordered it online, so I don't even know if they have it in the store, so.
A can does, this last year we did 19 cackling geese with one can.
Yeah.
one coat.
Yeah. When I'm spraying my testers on, I have a hair dryer next to me, so I'll give it a light coat all the way around, and then I take my hair dryer and just, you know, holding it back, but it dries it fairly fast and works pretty well. Last couple of months, if you've been to my shop anytime over the last 10 years, I've had decoy after decoy after decoy laying around ready to paint. So over the last few months, I actually had 9 decoys painted. So 3 Drake redheads and 2 hens and those 3 and then my little one. So my bench is getting nice and clear. So halfway done, I got like 8 or 9 left, but I feel good. So this is a Drake redhead. I didn't compete with this one at all. It was just kind of an extra decoy. Carved in Tupelo, Kokobo, keel, head separate, painted acrylics.
Is the keel weighted?
Yeah. So I've been using lead shot in my keels. The Kokoboa, that's a heavy wood. So much more so than the walnut. So it doesn't take quite as much lead in them. But one lesson I learned with Kokoboa, it's kind of an oily wood. It's my first made keels out of it. I put some polyurethane varnish on it, and it never dry. Just never dry, never dry. It's like, what's up with this? So finally figured out to use a very quick drying varnish. And
Like Spark?
yeah, something that dries quick. So that's what I use. And you get it tinted or just regular. If you get the tinted stuff, Kokoboa is a very beautiful red wood, but the tinted stuff even makes a really nice, nice looking keel.
I heard it helps to wipe it down with like mineral spirits or something first to wipe some of the oil off
Oh, okay.
as much as you can, and then
Okay.
that helps a little bit, I guess.
Okay.
Tom, what do you seal put your shot in, you got a gap, what do you fill the gap with?
I use that 2-part epoxy putty, that quick wood. You buy it at Home Depot. Or if you want to, I drill them out with a Forstner bit.
Yeah.
Create a channel right down the center of my keel. So right from about here to here, I bore it out all the way down to maybe within a 1/4 inch of going through. So the lead I'd like ideally further away from the bird. So then when I pour in my lead shot, it fills up to the bottom, and then
But when you put the epoxy in, it's gonna sink down into the BBs.
sometimes I go through quite a bit of quick wood. Sometimes my BBs are almost to the top. On this hen, my challenge on this hen, without the keel, she's hollowed out. She weighs less than a pound. I mean, she's ounces. Well, all 3 of them are actually. But that hen, I needed her to ride on the water the way she would if she were a real duck, which means tail down, tail on the water. So when I put her in the water without any keel at all, she's so light, she's like riding right on top of the water. So if you imagine, I gotta pull this bird down 3/4 of an inch into the water. So I actually had to drill more holes in the front of this keel. This keel, it's full of lead all the way up to the top. And actually, I think if I pull this out, I need to use quick wood. You see lead shot and I pour epoxy glue in there. Pour epoxy glue in there, put the lead shot in there, and then I pour a bunch of epoxy glue over the top, and it just soaks down through. And
I mixed up my epoxy, I used the whole darn thing, and that's $5.
yeah. So, yeah.
I'm looking for something cheaper.
You can make a plug glue. You can take a piece of your hardwood. Make a pattern of Decoy you drilled. Make a pattern of that and glue it in there.
Yeah, that's an idea,
Yeah. So there's ways. You can make a plug out of any wood and seal it up. So even if it's scrap cedar or Tupelo or whatever, the fast wood. Okay, is that everybody?
I got it.
Oh, okay.
box of junk.
Oh, man.
So I think I've been coming here now for 2 or 3 years, and all my wife sees is that I accumulate more and more stuff. So she told me it's time for me to get rid of some of my stuff. So I brought in a sample of a bunch of projects that I'm not going to work on if anybody's interested. This is a sample of the 4 or 5 additional boxes I have in my truck. So if anybody's looking for some blank stuff that they want to do some work on, I've got plenty of it. And so either some of this goes or I go, so some of this is going to go.
Are you trading that for a new wife?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I'll just paint a piece of wood with
Yeah.
off-white or